there is a cut of beef called the eye of round. You might have seen it. It looks like the leanest cut of meat you've ever seen. It reminds you of filet mignon, except for it's a little bit more pale, but it looks like so flawless. You're like, that's gotta be amazing if it looks like a filet. Allegedly, it's like one of the worst cuts of meat, like toughest cuts of meat on the cow. So it's totally like a red herring. I even did some research on this, and I found a butcher shop in some other state, and it was like describing all the different meats they sell, and then they get to the eye of round, and the guy writing the article is like, eye of round, I don't think much of this cut of steak, and frankly, we just don't carry it. So the poor eye of round doesn't even make it to the butcher shop. So I'm going to try to do something with the eye of round. And, can you make a steak out of it? Maybe, but then, it's going to be very tough, so you got to be ready to chew a lot, right? So how do we use the eye of round? That's my experiment for today. To help you understand what's happening, I went ahead and drew an amazing cow picture. No, I'm not kidding. This is the most amazing thing I think I've ever drawn. So, look at the personality in those eyes. All right, so if you look at a cow, the front half of the cow is the more fatty part, and the back half is the leaner part. So filet mignon, very lean, must come from the back part, right? And meanwhile, like a ribeye, which is super fatty, of course, comes from the front. The chuck, which is very fatty for pot roasts and stuff, comes up here. The round is like the butt. That's like the round ass. I guess you can think of it that way. I don't really swear very often. Oops. Anyway, so the eye of round is actually coming from this area. So I looked up what you could do, right? So it turns out you can dry roast it and make a decent roast beef out of it. You're better off using a top round or a bottom round, but you could actually get away with a eye of round roast. You can also braise it. It doesn't have a lot of fat, so it's not going to create that luscious sauce, but you can do that. So a nice moist, low 1 to 2 hour. If you choose to braise it, I'm thinking you could use stock, wine, water, tomato, whatever to get that going. Now, it turns out it works okay in a stir fry, because if you cook it quickly, it won't get as tough as if you cook it slower. So a stir fry is actually a reasonable way to use up the round. You can also make a cube steak, and that's where you can actually buy it already cubed, but then you don't know what cut it is. And I really wanted to work with that around, so I'm going to cube it myself if I do that. And once it's cubed, a braise is good, country style, Swiss, or the classic chicken fried steak, which I don't think I've had one of those since I was in college eating at the diner, after bars all night. So chicken fried steak, you can make a round out of that if you cube it first. You could cut it very thin and then braise it and wrap around stuff like a braccioli or a rouladen or an involtini, right? All those are ways of wrapping beef around something. And guess what? You can make a tartare. I'm very tempted to do that. I've never made a tartare. In the end, I got attracted to the chicken fried steak. I guess I was feeling nostalgic, so I'm going to try to make a chicken fried steak. The other thing about the chicken fried steak is, out of all those techniques, it's the fastest one. 35 minutes. You're going to cook it quickly and not overcook it, and that's how you're going to make this, cut edible. But we need to cube it, and so that's going to be step one, is cubing that up. So first, notice I'm going to trim off this fat. Why? Because with chicken fried steak, you're going to cook it very, very quickly. There will be no time for this fat to render off. I'm using the wrong knife for this. Since that's not going to have time to render off, I don't want that to be on the final product. So I'm going to get rid of all visual fat. If I was going to slow cook it, then maybe that might render off. So check this guy out. It's a 48 blade meat tenderizer. And so the idea is you can take eye of round and a device like this, and then you just go like this. And you want to go back and forth 5 times. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the same way, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you could flip it over and do it again, depending on how thick it is. This one's not very thick. I probably don't have to do both sides. But that's it. So I'm going to do that. Now, one technique I saw is that you should flour it first, okay? And then, once it's floured, then you do this. So I'll try it both ways just to see if there's any difference. It definitely feels harder once it's got the flour on it. Whew, that was quite a workout. So this is what the blades look like when you retract it. So you're basically pounding it and tenderizing it. So that was fun. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next step now. But if you don't have a tenderizer and don't want to get one, you can actually ask the butcher to do it, and they actually will have a cubing machine. You can probably just give them and say, hey, can you cube this right now? And they'll run them right through, boop, 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 and you don't have to skip that whole step and buying one of those blades. So go for that. I'll probably try that next time just to see if I ask them to cube it for me, if they'll do it. I hit all my steaks with salt and pepper, This is the one that I didn't flour first. So I'm going into the egg, and then into the flour. And one done. Okay. Shake off the excess onto our rack, and I'll mark that one so we know which one was the experiment. For the rest of these, there's already flour on them, but you still do egg and then flour. So on all those different variations that I listed on the whiteboard, all of them, when you cube the steak, have the same process, which is flour, then, oh, by the way, you can also use a fork if you didn't buy it cubed and don't have a cube. It's just going to take a lot longer. This is just one egg, by the way, and it looks like it's plenty for all 4 of these. Yeah, you flour it, you stab it all up, and you flour it. Okay, time to add my meat to my skillet. This one's big enough I should be able to get all 4 pieces in. And 4. Always try to put the rounded part of your meat towards the rounded part of your pan. Alright, so I've heard 2 minutes and I have heard 4 minutes per side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 2 minutes and then flip it over and go 2 minutes and see where I'm at. So one thing I've learned, everyone used to tell me never move the meat once you put it in there so it gets a nice sear, but now there's this continuous flip method that they're using on burgers and steaks. What that taught me, and I tried out the continuous flip, it was a lot more work because you have to keep flipping things, and you can't multitask, but what it taught me was it comes out great. So now, I'm going to go 2 minutes, flip 2 minutes, and if I don't like what I'm seeing, then I'll go another minute. Continuous flip technique, all new. All right, it's been 2 minutes. Well, this doesn't really remind me of the chicken fried steak that I've had in the various markets, but these are really dark over here, so I'm going to switch sides. These don't remind me of those at all. So maybe there's much to be learned in my fried chicken technique, but I'd say 2 minutes was definitely the right amount. Because again, remember, this is going to get very tough if you let it overcook. Now, after 2 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and move this into the oven at 250 degrees just to keep it warm while I build the gravy for the chicken. All right, now we're going to put in a little oil, maybe a tablespoon. And this is the pan I made these steaks in. That's why I had to move them to another rack, if you will. And now I'm taking the same flour I dredged in. This is what I love about this recipe is that you don't have to throw it all away. Normally, when you dredge, you toss, right? And you might wonder, is that food safe? I got this recipe from Alton Brown, and he tends to be pretty focused on that stuff. Oh, I think I put in too much. I should probably only have put in 2 because I halved the recipe. So let's get a little out. All right, good enough. Now we're gonna go ahead and let the flour get coated in the oil before we introduce the liquids, which we're going to do chicken stock and then a little bit of milk. Okay, so this is all nice and incorporated. The flour is all coated. In goes my chicken stock. I also put a little thyme in here. So I'm just going to let this thicken up a bit, then I'll finish it with a little milk, and I am ready to serve my chicken fried steak out of round steak. Remember to always taste as you go. I tasted it and realized right away that I had not yet added any salt or pepper, so I added salt and pepper, and now I'm going to finish it with some milk. And I think I'm ready to plate. Let's get that mixed in. Not quite sure how much milk, so I'm just going to see what it looks like. Maybe put in a little bit more. But there we go. All right, I think that looks pretty good. And yeah, I mean, it's coating that spatula really nicely. And it's going to thicken up as it gets cool. So we're good to go. Time to plate. Well, there she is, all plated up. And judge me if you'd like, but the scrambled egg that I didn't use up dredging, I scrambled them because I've had steak and eggs, chicken fried steak and eggs a million times. And this tells me I could have done 2 eggs for the water bath and then used the rest up as a little side egg. But I would have used it all up in one and then not done it for the other. But since I have a guest, I'm going to share half of that over there. So there you go. I am ready to taste. Oh yeah, I made it with some mashed potatoes and an artichoke. So I really have no idea what to expect here. You know, normally I would have just gotten a piece of filet, cut it thin, and made a chicken fried steak out of that. But, you know, this is fun. So first off, cuts very easily. Looking at the cook on it, doesn't look medium rare, so it looks pretty well cooked, which I think is supposed to be a bad sign. Oh, I probably should have had it without the mashed potatoes first, but let's see what we got. So the gravy is definitely a little darker than I wanted it to be, but the flavor of the gravy is very much like chicken fried steak. Oh yeah, now we can see that's a lot more mid-rare than I thought. So that's perfect. That's actually well cooked, mid-rare. So 2 minutes, that's all you need for a thin one like this. Wow. So bottom line, this is awesome. It's tender. It only takes 2 minutes per side to cook it. It tastes very much like a chicken fried steak. The texture is not what I'm used to. I expected it to be a little more like that chicken fried steak that I've had in the diner type places, but that's just my technique. I've never really made fried chicken, so I'm sure I got a lot to learn in that space. If you know how to make fried chicken, get yourself a super cheap round steaks. Either have them cube them at the store, use a fork, or get one of my little boop 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 devices. Flour, stab, flour, and then take it any way you want. You don't have to do the chicken fried steak. You can use that as a tenderized steak in a lot of different applications. And so you saw my list earlier. Maybe one of those appeals to you. But I'm keeping the round steak on my rotation, and I will try to have them cube at one time just so I can see what the difference is, because maybe I can save everybody a lot of work and money. All right, thank you.